So hello again. I'm so excited to be joined by Dr. Lynda Shaw. Not only is she a good friend of mine, but she's also an expert. So she's an expert cognitive neuroscientist and a change specialist, which sounds very exciting. She's been helping us in the journey to get people off sugar and get through the change and make it easy for you. So without any further ado, I want to welcome Lynda.
Hiya, James. How are you doing?
I'm doing very, very well. Beautiful sunny day out there, even though we're inside at the moment, but it's great. And thank you for spending some time with us this afternoon, just chatting about how we can change. So I love the title of Change. How do people change?
Well, people seem to think that it's the hardest thing of all. I think partly because people don't like uncertainty, or the brain doesn't like uncertainty. So what happens when, especially now during this pandemic, there's so much uncertainty going on out there, that what the brain does, what it doesn't know, it makes up. So if there are gaps going on, it starts to look for information, feverishly looking at the news, trying to work out what's going on, speaking to people, trying to fill in those gaps with stories that are actually, quite frankly, made up, because they haven't happened yet. So then we build this story up to fill in those gaps, or to make us try to feel better. But those stories are filled with worry and fear. So therefore, every time we rerun the stories, we are stimulating cortisol, the stress hormone, and other such chemicals going on. So we get even more frightened, more anxious, more depressed, more whatever. And there's this awful vicious cycle going on. So in actual fact, if we people realize that actually change isn't that bad. In fact, if you try to avoid it, you're going to be a dinosaur, because everything's about change, and it's going so fast, so rapidly. Life is making us change constantly, and what's coming out, how on earth we're going to come out of this pandemic will be different to how we went in. There is change, constantly changes, little changes, big changes, all of the time. So if we learn to actually embrace them, enjoy them, then actually it's all cool. It's good. Yeah, bring it on. What's next? What's next? So
I'm like you. I like the latest challenge. But where do we learn this from? Is it a behaviour that we learned as a child? Do we mirror it from our parents? How do we learn this?
Well, there's lots of ways we learn behaviour as we grow. We learn from our environment, our social and cultural upbringing. We learn from our biological makeup, our DNA, our hormones. That's all part of it as well. And of course, then you've got all of our perceptions and our thinking, and all of those emotions coming into it as well. So there's lots of things that dictate or persuade how we behave. So it's never based on one thing. It enters the nature-nurture debate, to be honest with you, which is devilishly awful to unravel. And I'm not sure if we ever will, but we can leave that one alone.
Yeah,
but
we can park that for the moment. But so a lot of people listening in are trying to become healthier. They're trying to get rid of sugar out of their diet. So what tips can you help them to go through that initial change?
Well, the thing is, what we have to remember is that anything that we have that is a habit is soft-wired. Okay, it's not hardwired. It is soft-wired. It's not biologically determined. That is what hardwired means. Language is hardwired. Habits are not. So that means we can change them. This is the whole juicy thing about life, and about understanding a bit about the brain, is that we can actually be in control a little bit more than we think we can be. We can be in the driving seat of our destiny more than we think we can be, just by understanding a bit about what's going on in our heads. Not a lot. Just a bit. You can learn as much as you want, but we actually have more control than we realize. So once we realize that habits are soft-wired, that we can change them, that self-awareness is step one. Think, okay, but the hardest bit is to work out, well, what habits are not serving me well anymore? Because they wouldn't have become a habit unless they did serve you well in the first place. Mm. So sometimes habits become empty. Like, let's take sugar. You start to eat, I haven't got anything here that's edible. You start to eat something that's sweet, and that first square of chocolate is really delicious. It's a really nice quality piece of chocolate. It's really, really delicious, and you've got it maybe with your favorite coffee or hot drink or something. It's gorgeous. Then the second square you eat and you're less aware of it. The third, fourth, fifth, sixth, the whole bar, you not even know you've eaten it, because the habit has become empty. It's become an empty habit. And I always think that's a real big shame, to be at the mercy of empty habits, especially if they're harming us. So the trick is, first thing of all, is to work out, well, what are these habits that I'm doing that no longer serve me? And it takes a bit of thinking. It actually takes a bit of thought to work it out. But of course, we know that eating sugar of any kind is habit. So we be aware of it, we can change it.
Thank you. I mean, lots of people talk about it takes 30 days to break a habit, 60 days. And I know we're all different. And what we found with the Rewards Project is after 6 days, your palate changes. So you notice different tastes. But then if you've always, let's say 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you've always had a cup of tea and you've had a biscuit with it. And if you've done that for years, what's the best way to get somebody out of that?
Right, well, first of all, I really have an issue with how many times I've read it takes X amount of days to change a habit. Because what happens is, say that it says 25 days to change a habit, and you're doing really well, and on day 26, you succumb to that habit. That's going to make you feel like a failure. That's not helpful. That is really not helpful. So I'm not one to label these things in terms of days or anything at all. It depends on the individual, depends on circumstances, depends on a huge amount of stuff about that single person. But in terms of maybe at 3 o'clock, you have that cup of tea and a biscuit, then change the trigger or change the cue. The cue or the trigger is that cup of tea and the time of day. So perhaps don't have that cup of tea. Instead, you're going to laugh now, but I love drinking hot water with a slice of lemon. I really do. It's refreshing. It quenches my thirst. I love it. I happen to say I've got some decaf coffee here now, but I'll hide that one. But so for me, if I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I've got a trigger, I've got to fix this trigger because it's going to make me, head for the biscuit marrow, then change the trigger. Hot water with lemon, or a herbal tea, or a glass of water, or something that stops you thinking of the biscuit, stops you looking for the reward that goes with the trigger.
Great piece of advice. And we also talk about at the beginning of the challenge is to write down a 3-day diary, because we're so automated. We often forget we've eaten one biscuit. It might be the whole packet have gone. We don't even know because we're doing it on autopilot. So actually stopping and writing down what we do when would then help you realize, okay, the trigger is 3 o'clock. What happens just before 3 o'clock? Oh, it's because I just have to finish my shift or something, and then something changes. So actually being aware of what you're doing first, and then what you're eating and why you're eating it. I totally agree with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, remember, habits are automatic. It's our brain's way of doing more stuff without having to use cognitive resources, without having to use our attention. So that's why it's quite difficult to work out what your habits are, and the habits that no longer serve you. That's quite difficult. You do need to sit down and think about it. So keeping a diary is an excellent way of working it out.
Keeping a diary. I know some people have done video diaries as well. And one of the things we try and do is this thing called a sweet sweeper, where before the challenge you go around the house and the kitchen and the office and the car and look at where all your snacks are, because you've hidden them away everywhere, and then get rid of them and replace them with something else. Because what we want to try and do, as you say, everything's quite automated, is try and make it easier to eat healthier.
Yeah, absolutely. And turn it into new habits. Will not, once you've discovered what the habit is that you want to replace, and replace it is better than stopping it. But the way, because you're more likely to keep going, but the way you will really keep going and turn that new activity into a habit is for it to be rewarding, for it to be fun, for it to be delicious, for it to be something that you really love. You get the lovely reward circuitry buzzing around, the dopamine is all flaring around, all great things, make us motivated, make us feel that lovely anticipation that something rewarding is going to happen, of dopamine fires, and perfect stuff, absolute perfect stuff, those lovely chemicals. But we do need to actually feel that it's good. It's what we're looking forward to is lovely. It's delicious to get that reward circuitry going. Then we'll do it more and more and more, and then it becomes a habit that we've replaced with the old habit from. It's good.
Jenny was talking about making her kitchen a nice place to be in that she enjoys, and a rewarding place as well. So actually trying to make things fun, and as you were talking about life being exciting and fun and trying different foods and flavors and different things, rather than, oh my God, I'm on a diet. I hate the word diet because it's like, what are you depriving yourself of?
Absolutely agree, 100%. Don't like the word diet. It's a different way of eating. It's not diet. It gives your brain the idea that, words matter, semantics matter. So you're giving the brain the idea that, oh, I'm going to be without, I'm going to lack. No, it's not. It's about new gorgeousness stuff happening. What else can we do that is really delicious and lovely to do, and maybe a novelty, something that you've never tried before? That's rewarding in itself, and then you want to try it.
Totally agree with that. I really like the gorgeousness as well. That was I like the word gorgeousness.
Let me write that down.
So what happens? I know a lot of people struggle a bit where they do really well and they're enjoying the journey, and then something happens and they go straight back into an old pattern or something, or they suddenly, without even thinking, they've eaten another lot of, I don't know, they've had a donut, or they've walked past the shop and they've seen a donut and they've just impulsively bought it and then felt really guilty. What do you give advice to people once they've done that? Because we try and say, well, it's not a problem, it's just a little blip, just carry on. But is there some advice that people can do?
Enjoy the blip.
Okay.
Enjoy it. You've just come past a shop, as you've just said, with a donut, and you're going to buy it and they've got it in your hand, and you go, just go and sit in a park. Clearly with social distancing at the moment, but go and sit in a park with your donut and savour it, and then let it go. Be done.
That's one thing I found with we've got a chocolate tasting experiment, and just to get people to have one little piece of chocolate, let it sort of rest on their tongue and let it slowly dissolve, and you actually notice all the nuances, all the flavors, all the excitement of that one piece of chocolate. It will last a lot longer, and actually you probably won't want any more of the chocolate. But what we often find is that we're sort of so busy doing something else while we're having the chocolate, we don't even enjoy the chocolate because we're focusing on the emails.
Well, if chocolate's your thing, why don't do a course on becoming a chocolate connoisseur? A little bit of these things won't hurt. Now, you'll probably tell me off now, James,
No.
but if it's something that's really delicious that you absolutely love, don't go and buy some massive chocolate bar in the local shop and eat it so much that you feel sick afterwards. Because actually, for me, I feel sick if I eat too much sugar. I don't feel well at all. So, but if you're going to think chocolate's your thing, don't deny it. Go to some place and buy the really expensive, ridiculous chocolate as a special treat, and have a little bit. I
think it's also part of the experience, isn't it? If you start researching where the best chocolate is, maybe go to 4 or 5 different shops, do some tastings, find the one you really like, get to speak to the person who made it, and it's the whole experience. And then when you have that piece of chocolate, it means a lot more than buying the one off the corner shop where you really have no connection with, and it's full of more sugar than anything else.
Absolutely. And if you've got the history of how that chocolate was made, and if you do find out who made it, and as you're eating it and you're allowing it to dissolve on your tongue, you'll be thinking about that. You'll be thinking about all that effort that went in to making that piece of chocolate, all of that expertise, all about those cocoa beans that have come from some wonderful place that many, many miles away. And all of that comes into it, and you become aware of it. That's hugely rewarding, and you feel so much better because you'll have had just a little bit of something that you really love.
Yeah, I love it. We talked quite a lot about individuals and how people can make changes. Have you got some tips and advice if a team wants to do it, or if you're in your workplace and you actually want to make a change there in healthier food and healthier lunches? Have you got any tips of how you can get engagement with the rest of the team?
Engagement with the rest of the team has to come from their individual wants and needs. We can never force anybody to do anything. We think we can, but we can't. So in actual fact, it's a case of getting everyone on board with your philosophy at that moment, whatever it is. I really want to start eating healthier, because I know, especially during this pandemic, I know that my immune system is my best friend. Okay, I've got to exercise well, I've got to eat well, I've got to drink lots of water, I've got to sleep well. All of these things we know, but it's even more in the front of our minds at the moment because there's so many people who are very, very poorly. So if this is a really good time to speak to your colleagues, albeit remotely at the moment, but as we come out of lockdown, of course, that will change, and just say, do you know what? I don't want to feel rubbish. I really do want to feel good, and I do want a strong immune system. I want to be able to go out, and if somebody has got germs, I want to be able to fight them. And as we know, they're invisible. So get them on board, get them to want to do it with you, and then you can come up with a strategy that you all agree upon.
And is that the same for families? Because I know some people where they're trying to sort of change their diet and they're change their lifestyle and they're trying to get healthier. And sometimes there's a medical condition or something that's happened to them that makes them want to change. Other times they're just like, you know what, my skin's not doing well. I've got more problems with my teeth. I'm looking at my weight now. I want to make a change. But how do you help encourage maybe family members as well? Is that the same thing? It's just encouraging them to know why you're doing it?
I think with family members, we sometimes assume our children, our teenagers know more than they do. We almost assume that they are thinking the same way as us, or they know that stuff, don't they? That's on the news, that's on the television, everybody knows this stuff. Perhaps they haven't processed the information the same way. So it might be worth sitting down and going, look, I'm feeling rubbish because X, Y, Z. You keep saying that you're really worried about your skin. You keep saying that you put on a few pounds. We all know that sugar was the biggest culprit. Why is that? So you then sit down and work, say, look, this is what's going on. If we eat this instead, that we love, I know you love this, I know you love the other. If we eat this instead, then we're on a winner. We actually can do this as a team. I think, again, you've got to get consensus from everyone, absolutely everyone. That's the issue. But don't assume that our children and our teenagers know as much as we think. Mm-hmm. It's worth chatting it through.
No, that sounds a great bit of advice. And one of the things I was also going to talk to you about is how to make it easier to make these changes. Now, one of the things that we put in place is having a support network around. So whether it's the Facebook group or it's reaching out to friends and colleagues or family members, do you have any tips or advice about getting people to help support you through this journey? Did you hear me?
I think if you're looking, can you hear me?
Yeah, can hear you. Perfect.
Okay. I think if you're looking for a support network, they work as long as people don't feel as if they could be judged, or that they feel that they are too ashamed to say what they have just done, or all of those things. I think we need to lighten up. I think there needs to be an agreement between everyone that nobody's wrong, nobody's being judged, and have fun in the group. Enjoy the group. Don't make it so serious. We take our lives so seriously sometimes, and I talk about some extremely serious issues, but I don't take myself seriously. And I think that is a key. So if you've got a group that you actually turn to, then just say, "Key, let's lighten up. Let's have some fun with this." Whatever that means to that group, that means something different to each person. As long as you're not, if you're going to use humour, as long as you're not hurtful or sarcastic, you're always respectful for one another. But I think, again, if you can do that, then you feel better. You're starting to stimulate the feel-good neurochemicals in the brain because of the way you're communicating with that group. And that will feel a reward in itself. So you'll look forward to speaking to them and not dread it because, oh my God, I did that donut thing. You feel quite good about saying, hey, yes, I did it. I said no to that donut. So it's just make it fun.
No, it's brilliant. Now, well, throughout what we've been talking about this afternoon, it's all about having fun with it, not sort of putting yourself to blame each time, enjoying it, and realizing that life is all about having fun, connections, and it's also what we're fueling our body with, which is something that makes a massive difference. So, I mean, thank you so much for sharing your tips and advice. It's always a pleasure talking to you, Lynda.
You're very welcome.
It's always very bubbly and exciting. So I'm really looking forward to people's comments when this comes out. I know lots of people are going to have loads more questions. So what's the best way that people can get in contact with you, or where do they find you on the social media?
Okay, my email address is Lynda. I'm Lynda with a Y. Lynda at drlyndashaw.com. Lynda at drlyndashaw.com. Isn't that the most useless email address when you're actually saying that? I had to spell the whole thing. There's a lesson there, folks. Have a really simple email address.
Yeah. Don't be a doctor. Don't have
And also my website is www.drlyndashaw.com.
Okay, cool. And are you on any social media platforms if they see you on?
Yep, you can find me on Facebook and LinkedIn.
Okay.
Lynda with a Y, remember. So yeah, you can find me there always, and love to hear from you. Really would.
Oh, thanks. Well, I'm going to post the links to Lynda's bio under the video. So it was such a great pleasure having you on this afternoon. You can now rush out into the sun and have more deliciousness. And it was very good talking to you. So thank you so much, Lynda. Have a great day.
You're welcome, James. You too.